my husband lost his mum sadly at the beginning of the year. He comes from a big blended family. And while his stepdad is still alive, thankfully, there has been talk about who will get what. Not in a ghoulish way, but inheritance is what I'm talking about. His mum has a house and has put money aside, apparently. Now, she was an amazing lady who actually gave her kids a bit of an early inheritance a few years back. But fast forward to now, and some of his family want nothing. Others just want whatever happens, it is fair to all. And of course, any children, not just my hubby's family, shouldn't assume that they are entitled to anything, really. Experts say whether parents leave an inheritance or spend their money depends largely on family values, circumstances, and relationships. Lynda Moore is a financial coach and director of Money Mentalist. She says inheritances can work well, but warns parents risk their own retirement if they give away too much. And she joins me now. Lynda, good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely to talk again.
Yes, lovely to be here again.
Yeah, fantastic. Before we get into this, Lynda, you've had the experience, haven't you, of receiving an early inheritance. What was your situation?
So my dad had passed away and Mum wasn't coping very well, and I didn't want to move in with her in Whangamata. She didn't want to move to Auckland, so we up sticks and moved to Motueka.
Oh, that's awesome.
So what we did is we pooled our resources. So Mum sold her house. We bought a beautiful property down here and we put a second dwelling on. So Mum and I are now neighbours. And honestly, it's been, Mum's been down here a year and it has worked brilliantly. She's got the security of me living right next door and has complete independence. I have complete independence. I'm not worried about Mum because I'm right next door. And we're co-parenting a Labrador who is now 18 months old.
You heard me talking about my dog barking.
I heard you talking about your dog, yes.
Tell you what, he's a darling, but my God, he loves the sound of his voice. Like his mummy. So you've called this a win-win with you and your mum. Were there any moments of doubt, Lynda, if you're being honest?
Look, I think the doubts actually weren't Mum and I, because we've always got on really, really well. It was more pushback from Mum's friends.
Oh,
and they were going, well, why are you doing this? They were being kind of protective of Mum, but they were going, well, why are you doing this? Well, you're leaving us, you're moving to Motueka for a start, and why are you giving all this money to Lynda now, sort of thing. So she did have to kind of put her foot down and go, I trust Lynda, she's my daughter, she would never do anything to harm or do anything wrong, and this is what we're doing. And to be perfectly honest, her friends have had to eat their words, because for a while there, Mum's social life was better than mine, and I really had to up my game.
Interesting. Okay, so I mean, good on her. She's living her best life. It's brilliant. So it's worked out for you and your mum, which is fantastic. But how should families even start the conversation about inheritance without it turning awkward?
Look, it really does need to start early, before parents are in that sort of elderly, because by the time they're getting to that, there's also the health issues and all of those things starting to come up. And, I think it's really sad. I mean, I've just been with a client and the will was contested. And so for 18 months, they've had this huge legal battle. And as she said to me, it wasn't about the money. It was the fact they haven't been able to grieve for 18 months. And that's kind of your worst nightmare. So having conversations really early in the piece, when your children are young adults, I don't think necessarily teens, but when they're starting to make the way in the world themselves, because then you can have that conversation, well, do I give them a helping hand now because they need a house, or do they need it later? And if you're not talking about that, how do you know what's going to be best for both parties?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Lynda, because I was about to say I know a lot of parents that have helped their kids out onto the property ladder. So that kind of counts as inheritance of sort, doesn't it? Some would think.
Yes, it does. And I think the other interesting thing too now is, parents are now, their kids are staying at home longer. So you might, whereas, I left at home at sort of 18. Some kids are staying at home till mid-20s. 30s. So
Yeah.
parents are funding that as well. And then at the other end, you've got grandparents looking after grandchildren. So they're
Yeah.
giving a lot of their time and effort and energy. So if they're giving that as well, why would you expect a huge lump of cash when they pass away as well, when they're giving you so much support? Because the generation we're in is very different than when I was growing up. I mean, Mum and Dad were fortunate enough to have a freehold house. That's going to be very, very different now for a lot in our generation.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm sure, Lynda, that a lot of families want their parents to just enjoy the fruits of their labour. But do you
Yes.
think some parents still feel, or have you got them as clients, still feel guilty about spending money on themselves instead of, saving it for the inheritance?
Yes. Yeah, they certainly do, because if you think back to kind of like their grandparents who were the war and the depression, it was all about squirreling away money. And it's really hard for them to change that mode of behaviour and actually enjoy spending money on themselves, because there is that kind of unwritten obligation from generations ago that you would leave something to the children. And I don't think the younger generation now have that expectation. I mean, my daughter Amy, she said, "Mum, you and Nanny do what you want. I don't need anything." Her and her partner have their own home, they're set up. She's going, "Just enjoy it, spend it all, I don't care." And I think there is more people that I'm talking to, their children seem to have that attitude. But those are the families that are having the conversations. There's still a lot of families that aren't. And if you look in the farming sector, where there's a lot of wealth tied up in land and things like that, not necessarily cash, I hear some horrible family stories about what goes on in the farm and, passing the farm down and things like that.
Yeah,
So
that
there's
must be a
still
tough
a
one.
lot of that generational 3 or 4 generations back that's impacting on some of the stuff that's happening now.
Yeah. Have you found any or spoken to any clients, any parents that sometimes still want to give too much too soon and possibly can put their own retirement or well-being at risk?
Yes, and that's where sometimes I have to kind of step in and go, "Just a minute here, back up the bus. Are you okay? Have you got enough of your own money put away?" And they kind of go, "Oh, no, it's fine." And you go, "Well, actually, life expectancy is longer. So, you don't want to still be around at 90, but your money runs out at 85. And then potentially you're going to have to go maybe back to the family, or what are you going to do in that gap?" So there is a little bit about don't be generous, but be sensibly generous.
Yeah. Here's a bit of a tricky one. What's the best way for parents to manage expectations? Say if one child has already had financial help and the others haven't. I'll give you we had an example in our family when my mum was a young mum, when we were still very young. Her brother, it was just her and her brother, her parents gave him money to keep his farm going. He had a little dairy farm. And mum got no money out of that. She got nothing because she had a house with kids. She didn't have a farm. And at the time she was like, "Oh, that's fine. He needed money to keep the farm going." Farm didn't end up keep going because my poor uncle wasn't the brightest. Anyway, it all turned to custard later on. But when my grandmother died, because my grandfather died 20 odd years before her, and grandma lived to a ripe old age. When the house was sold, I couldn't believe this, Lynda, because Mum remembered. She wrote in her will, she split the proceeds of the house right down the middle. So Mum got half and Uncle got half. Now, my mum was upset because she said all those years ago he received tens of thousands of dollars for the farm. And I went, "Oh my God, you remember that?" She goes, "Yeah, I should get more of the house." I mean, probably very, quite a. That was a real. That's what happened in my family. So I mean, you're dealing with that kind of thing as well.